Hello again. Operating a quota system, whether to limit and restrict the number of some minority or to promote and advance them, is always a bad idea. Milton Vinternich, Dean of Yale's Medical School until 1935, once declared that his policy regarding admissions each year was never admit more than 5 Jews, take only 2 Italian Catholics, and take no blacks at all. This is not only odious, it is irrational and likely to be harmful. If you artificially limit the number of some ethnic minority who can be employed or admitted to a university, then you automatically run the risk of losing out on the best qualified candidates. In recent years, this kind of quota system has been used to ensure that some minorities are admitted to universities or given management jobs with some company. This too is foolish because it inevitably means excluding white people who might be better qualified, simply so that you can end up with a photograph showing a certain proportion of black people in your institution. The same thing happens with women, of course. There is felt to be a need to ensure that half of the workforce, profession, or student body consists of women, and this too militates against men who might perhaps be better able to do the job. The imposition of quotas has become something of an end in itself and even spawned an industry called diversity and inclusivity. Always the aim is to limit or reduce the number of white men in any organisation. We see, of course, precisely the same thing in advertisements, films, and television programmes. Lest this seem fanciful and something dreamed up by a racist misogynist, allow me to direct your attention to the mission to the moon, which is due to take off soon from Cape Canaveral. You will observe that in the thumbnail to this video, only 50% of the crew are white men, and 25% female and 25% black. This is exactly how a Hollywood film would have cast such an enterprise if they were making a film about a moonshot. Does anybody seriously imagine that the composition of this crew was decided in a colour-blind or gender-blind fashion? In other words, for a highly technical operation, do you think that the only consideration was the technical expertise of those taking part, and that the racial and gender balance here is purely coincidental? Or do you suppose that it was decided beforehand that the optics, as they say, required at least one woman and one black man? I think we know the answer to this, and it is the same process at work on every level of both British and American society. There are, of course, dangers inherent in such a foolish scheme. One remembers the tragic death of Cara Spills Green. On the 25th of October 1994, a woman called Cara Spears Green was killed as she attempted to land a fighter plane onto an American aircraft carrier on a routine training mission off the coast of San Diego. Holt Green had achieved fame briefly for becoming the first woman fighter pilot in the American Armed Forces. Her accomplishment was the subject of controversy, though, after her death, for it was alleged that there was political pressure on both the Air Force and Navy to produce a female pilot in order to demonstrate that there was no sexism in the armed forces. Rumours, which were later confirmed, suggested that men were overlooked for qualification so that the Navy could produce a female fighter pilot. Holt Green had failed her first test, and there were those who said that she was not of sufficiently high caliber to be a pilot landing aircraft on the decks of an aircraft carrier. There was also a suspicion that the Navy had rushed the process of allowing Holt Green to qualify because they were determined to beat the Air Force in having a female fighter pilot. This is the danger with racial and gender quotas, and we shall have to hope that the first mission to the moon in over half a century is not compromised by similar political considerations.